Finding meaning at the zoo. For most zookeepers, the highlight of the workday is the time they spend interacting with animals. Besides, zookeepers spend much of their time performing activities that do not involve contact with animals, cleaning cages, preparing food, and they also conduct educational programs, to name a few. So here I'm saying that the highlight of the day for zookeepers is the time they spend with animals. And then I'm saying, but they spend most of their time performing activities that do not involve any contact with animals. So I need a contrasting connector here. So however fits. Besides means in addition, so that doesn't fit the context. As a result, also doesn't fit because the second line does not follow from the first line. And in other words, also doesn't fit. So however. Zookeepers spend much of their time performing activities that do not involve contact with animals, cleaning cages, preparing food, and conducting educational programs. So this is parallel structure question. This is a list of items, so they should be similar: cleaning, preparing, conducting. So they also conduct, the conducting of, and conduct. None of them are parallel to what's already been written. So C. Still, most zookeepers report very high levels of job satisfaction. A major reason for their enthusiasm is that they regard zookeeping not just as a job, but also as an expression of their identity and values. People who become zookeepers typically exhibit an early concern for animals. Before beginning their careers, many volunteer at animal shelters or veterinary clinics and then attend college to obtain a degree in zookeeping or a related field such as biology or ecology. Most zookeepers identify closely with their profession and consider their work morally important. These findings about zookeepers are demonstrated in a study by business professors J. Stewart Bunderson and Jeffrey Thompson. Which choice most effectively combines the underlined sentences? Two findings about zookeepers, which are that most identify closely with their profession and consider their work morally important, are demonstrated in a study by business professors J. Stewart Bunderson. So I don't like this because this employs the passive voice. A study by business professors this and this, a study that focused on zookeepers, demonstrates that most zookeepers identify closely with their profession. So this would have been a good option if the sentence had kept this at the beginning rather than here, because then it would be more concise. As a study by business professors Jay Stewart and Jeffrey Thompson demonstrates, most zookeepers identify closely with their profession and consider their work morally important. So this is a good way to say this. It's concise and uses the correct voice. Most zookeepers found in a study by business professors to identify closely with their profession also consider their work morally important. So this again does not present it in a straightforward format. So I would prefer C to D. Bunderson and Thompson asked 982 zookeepers from 157 different zoos to respond to statements about their work using a scale of 1 to 7, with 1 signifying that the respondent strongly disagreed with the proposition and 7 that he or she strongly agreed. When presented with statements asserting that their personal identity is based on their profession, such as the animal keeping profession's successes are my successes, zookeepers gave numerical responses averaging 5.21. Moreover, the average response did not reach 7 for any category. Okay, so which choice most effectively uses information from the table to support a main finding of Bunderson and Thompson? So I've already said that the animal keeping profession successes are my successes. That is a strong connection to the profession, and that showed a high score of 5.21. Moreover, the average response did not reach 7 for any category. So that is true, but it is not something that takes my argument forward. So I don't like A. The agreement rating for statements about occupational importance was lower than that for statement about work meaningfulness. Occupational importance is lower than work meaningfulness. That is true. But again, I don't think that really takes my argument forward. Similarly, they expressed high levels of agreement with statements about their moral duty to a good job, with responses averaging 5.49. So this is a good answer because it connects with the previous sentence that not only do they identify closely with the profession, they also express agreement for the fact that this is a moral duty. So I like C. Furthermore, their sense of duty to the zoo was only slightly greater than their willingness to sacrifice on its behalf, a difference of just 0.15. So this is getting too much into the specifics of one over the other and doesn't take my argument forward. So C. The experience of Megan Names, a zookeeper at Capron Park Zoo in Attleboro, Massachusetts, shows how seriously zookeepers take their work. So here my main sentence is the experience of Megan Neems shows how seriously zookeepers take their work. And this is the non-essential clause that describes Neems. So there is a closing comma here. So I should have a starting comma after Neems, which is option D. A without a punctuation is wrong and a semicolon is wrong because a semicolon comes between independent sentences. And I can have a starting dash when the closing punctuation is also a dash. So C is also wrong. When my animal gets stressed, I get stressed, she says. This leads her to think constantly about how she can make the animals' lives easier. So here I'm talking about animals' lives. So I'm using animals in the plural. So the apostrophe comes after S. So this is correct. Here, lives is not possessive. So this apostrophe and this apostrophe is wrong. And the missing apostrophe in D is wrong. So the answer is A. The wholehearted commitment of zookeepers to their profession can lead them to make sacrifices. In their study, Bunderson and Thompson gauged zookeepers' willingness to give up free time to perform important tasks at the zoo without additional pay. The responses, which averaged 5.82, showed a widespread willingness to sacrifice for the job. Which choice provides accurate information from the table? So willingness to sacrifice is 5.52. So it's not 5.82. So it's D. Siobhan McCann, another zookeeper at Capron Park Zoo, exemplifies this disposition. She says she is comfortable working weekends and holidays to care for the animals. Now here I have two sentences. Siobhan McCann exemplifies this disposition. That's the first sentence. And she says she's comfortable working weekends is the second sentence. So I can't have a comma between them because that leads to a comma splice error. Okay, I can have a semicolon because that would indicate that the two sentences are independent. But this comma is not correct because you would use a comma after says only if I have a direct quotation. This comma is wrong because this is again comma splice. Option D is fine because if I put a colon, then I'm kind of explaining how Siobhan McCann exemplifies this disposition. And that is exactly what the next sentence is saying. So D. On top of interacting with the zoo's visitors, zookeepers perform physically demanding tasks and often accept pay that is low relative to their educational achievements. Okay, so which choice provides the most effective transition? So we have not spoken about interacting with the zoo visitors here, so it's not A. In addition to working long and unusual hours, so that makes sense because I've just spoken about working weekends and holidays and sacrificing. So long and unusual hours fits with that. Though they enjoy many aspects of their jobs, so this doesn't fit here because I'm speaking about the sacrifices that zookeepers make. And despite working with many types of animals, again, the types of animals is not relevant. So in addition to working long and unusual hours, zookeepers perform physically demanding tasks and often accept pay that is low relative to their educational achievements. Which choice is most consistent with the style of the passage as a whole? So their pay is low relative to their educational achievement. That is good, formal and precise. Even when they are super educated, no, super educated is informal, doesn't fit. Despite their having a whole bunch of education, doesn't fit. When compared with their attainments of an educational nature. So this is way too wordy when I can say the same thing concisely in option A. Yet for many, a love of animals and a commitment to animal conservation makes these sacrifices not just tolerable, but meaningful. So here I have to decide the verb, and the subject is a love of animals and a commitment to animal conservation. So that is a compound subject, X and Y, which makes it plural. And so my verb should also be plural, which is make, right? A love of animals and a commitment to animal conservation make these sacrifices tolerable. Makes, is making, and has made are singular, so they are wrong. Okay, let's grade this. 34. DCCCD, DCCCD, 39. ADDBAB, ADDBAB. Okay, great. So we got all correct.